Well, hello, welcome along to this session. It's David Beard and Jeff Richards, and we're talking to you today about Sage CRM 2021 and beyond. It's really the future of Sage CRM from a technical perspective, and we want to highlight both the recent releases and take a high-level look at the next few years as well, talking about the global and the regional inputs we take and so on. So I shall hand over to my colleague, Mr. Richards, who'll take us on a bit of a journey.
Yes, well, thank you very much, David. We can't actually understand where we're going unless we know where we've come from. So it's worth actually looking at what we've just delivered for Sage CRM 2020 R1. And of course, it may not have been released in your region yet. So this could be a hot bit of news for you. But 2021 came out of the factory, so to speak, in February. The UK were the first out of the gate, and they released beginning of March. And what we've delivered in that is modern authentication. That's OAuth 2 support for Google and MS Office 365. So that's with the integration there. That's only internal client and also the advanced email manager. We've added in some great things for administrators like the customization of lists and grids, inline customization lists and grids. We've changed the focus of the way in which we handle telephony integration. So we've got telephone numbers now as links. We've added in another fantastic features for system administrators, the idea of self-service password recovery. So all of our users, anyone who's using the system and they go, oh, I've forgotten my password, now that's all taken care of as well. And we've made major extensions to the RESTful API endpoints, as well as a host of other little add-ons and changes and improvements to the customer experience as well. So a big release, actually, a very, very big release in 2021 R1.
Okay, so that is good news. And I think there's some good, useful, small, but useful pain points that we've solved, and also some longer term strategic thinking there. Let's talk a bit more about your next item on the agenda there, Jeff, the future and the highlights within that future, if you would.
We're in the process at the moment. We're in one of the early sprints for 2020 R2, so it's worth talking about some of the things that are taking place there. We've got some priorities, and I'll talk about our major priorities in a moment. But the reality is that we want to be able to support our customers in their journey to the cloud at their own speed. So we're doing more work around Azure. We're going to be making sure that we can offer in the 2021 R2, be able to offer single sign-on with Azure, to be able to offer multi-factor authentication with Azure as well. And this is all integration with Azure Active Directory. And we're also going to be looking at improvements to the things like the pipeline graphics, to look at changes to the way in which information is presented within the screen, simplification of some of the screens, removing fields which don't make any sense, adding in new metadata and new gadgets around quotes and orders, and improving some of the demo data as well to make it a little easier for some of our partners to be able to relate to their existing systems that they're using. This is all part of that emphasis on integration as a really important thing within Sage CRM.
Yes, I think the integration story is particularly important, isn't it? Because much of our base is within that Sage accounting area, and that's many, many tens of thousands of customers around the world who have yet to explore the excitement that is CRM, right? And opening up the integrations and doing more with demonstration data should make partners more comfortable.
Yes, absolutely. This is where if we were a little bit later on in the development cycle, I'd be able to be a little bit more open about what we were definitely going to be able to commit to in 2021 R2. We're expecting this to be a very busy build as well. So 2021 R1 was a big build. We hope that 2021 R2 is going to be big as well. We know that we're likely to be seeing some things that we have to do. So I'm being a little bit reticent reticent because we may have to do things because of the requirements from either Sage UK or Sage North America in terms of the major integrations with Sage 200 and Sage 300 that we have to take into account and then move to the Sage Business Cloud. But we have some broad objectives and priorities for 2022 onwards. And shall I go into that, David? Would you like me to talk about
Please do.
some of those? Okay. Well, really, in terms of where we are, integration is such an important concept that we are looking at the idea that we want our APIs to be front and center. We want it to be a very easy tool to integrate into back office systems and to be able to bring integrations with any web tool that you're using. Now, we saw that journey start with the 2019 R2 and the launch of the REST API, the full create, read, update and delete REST API. We've seen a major expansion to that in 2021. R1 will be looking to see what gaps we might have within the REST API as we push on with that. But that's a really, really important thing. One of the things that we hope that I expect to be able to have happened by the time this broadcast goes out is that we should be on the developer.sage.com site as well from the REST API. So that's linking in and being there with all of the other developer APIs that Sage has, everything from Sage Accounting, Sage Intacct, Sage 200, Spain, etc. All of the major development products, and we'll be there amongst them.
And what's the impact for partners on that, Jeff? Because this session's all for partners, of course, as you know. Different that's improved there.
Well, they will have access to of course, the API documentation. But when you see Sage, for example, listed as a global product within Sage City, when you see it resource being put into it to ensure that we are moving towards the Business Partner Cloud, when we see it added into developer.sage.com, then you get that re-emphasis that Sage sees CRM as an important global product. And again, Sage is announcing Sage CRM as one of its global products as we go around the world. And it is emphasizing that Sage CRM fits in with all of the strategy that Sage has about allowing customers to move to the cloud at their own speed, enabled by our partner network.
Okay, that's a good summary. All right, and that is important, I think, because we are part of that global growth category in the company around the world, and it's important to be seen in all the right places, so to speak. What else can you tell me?
Well, the second of our four main bands of priorities is to emphasize that move to the Business Partner Cloud, making sure that we are there and available to partners to be able to use and offer to customers. So we're looking through the final things that we have to do to make sure that we're running within the context of Sage Business Partner Cloud, and that includes scheduling some testing, whether we'll be supported on Azure SQL, for example, rather than simply an SQL instance running in Azure.
Right. Subtle difference there.
There is a subtle difference, and I don't want to trivialize the checks that we have to do there, but we anticipate it to be largely a QA task rather than a developer task, but we're going to have to be prepared for that. The other thing to talk about is we've been looking at security changes for the products with which we integrate. So we've added in the ability to use OAuth 2 for integration with Exchange Online. We have added that now to be able to work with Office 365, the email clients, and also with Google. we want to be able to make sure our own front end, our own product has adopted model authentication properties. So if people want to move away from basic authentication, they can, and be able to offer OAuth 2 for the main user interface, for SOAP, for REST, for any of the web services that we offer, including self-service as well. And so that's our, if you like, one of the important strands that we'll be thinking about as we go into 2022.
What about some of the other things? The idea that many of our products are being made to look different, so the different interface.
Yes, what we want. Well, Sage CRM has a big advantage in this, that we're not something like that is a office or a desktop product that is being sent to a browser. We are a browser-based product that integrates with products which are being renewed. But there is this big renewal we've got in the context of Sage. It's this design library, design language, and it has its own libraries for some of the tools that are being created with cloud native. That's called the Sage Carbon. You can find that on carbon.sage.com. It's based on the React framework. What we'll be looking at is not necessarily implementing Carbon ourselves, but wanting to make the difference between the CRM interface and the Sage 200 or the Sage 300 interface less jarring, and to be able to modernize the interface so it looks much more like the standard applications that people are using within the CRM, within the browsers now, whether that's taking best practice from things like Jira or other competitive products. And we'll be looking to modernize our user interface probably over a full release cycle. So we'll be making some steady incremental improvements, trying to be evolutionary rather than revolutionary.
Yeah. So in the last couple of minutes we've got remaining, what sort of things would you expect to see, and how would they be staged? Have you any feel for that at the moment?
Well, I mentioned one of the things that we'll be implementing, I hope, in 2021 R2, and that is the refreshed pipeline graphics, looking at ways in which we can basically improve the representation of the stages within the life cycle. And we'll also be looking to see if we can bring in avatars for the users, to bring in things like grids, which are much more like the calendar list grid rather than the existing grids that underneath the opportunity list or the lead list. So we're trying to look at ways in which we can simplify the interface to gain more real estate within tablets. So we want to be able to see whether we can change the menu offering so that it's almost a default permanent hamburger menu, and bring things into the same line, so there is more space within the user interface, so that we can emphasize what's important and what isn't.
Yeah, it's take advantage of the different devices people are using. So we're always interested, of course, right, in receiving more feedback. And I think for many partners on this call, talking to us directly via the community is a good place, Sage City. Would you agree? And is there anything else we should call out?
Absolutely. If you do get, and if you're a partner and you're involved in something like the North American Partner group, or if you're interested, actually, you can always drop David and myself a line. We can add you to a list, especially if you are wanting to share your opinions on how the interface should change. I would be very happy if we put our email addresses up here for you to contact us and to be able to really answer some of our questions as well, because we have these questionnaires that we circulate to partners who are our willing victims to tell us how we should be changing the interface.
All right, that's terrific. Thanks very much, Jeff, for that overview. And thanks very much for showing up to our session today. Goodbye for now.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.